posting its first profits in almost a decade. They reported a 23.9 billion rand before tax profit for the 2025 financial year. And this turnaround comes after improved performance across the generation fleet. Load shedding has dropped dramatically to just 13 days. Can you imagine? 13 days this year compared to 329 days last year. Let's talk about it with Eskom CEO Dan Marokane. Dan, good morning. They say it's lunchtime somewhere in the world, so if you wanted to raise a glass at 7:47, it wouldn't be untoward. Do you feel like celebrating this morning?
Good morning, Iman. Of course, there's quite a very high spirits in the business at the moment. But yeah, look, we take one day at a time. We know we still have some way to go in our turnaround program. We are pleased with the results and the indications that our operational performance is beginning to translate to financial performance as well. Yeah.
All right, so again, let's get into it, right? So this is important, and I think maybe let's just go to this particular piece. I was going to ask you this much later after we get through the operational issues. But if you look at some of the morning press, that they're not channeling, those feel goods or the good feels, as the kids like to say, into their headlines. If you look at the BD today, they're going with the 550 billion rand hole that could swallow Eskom, and it's only in the third paragraph that they mention the profit that you've broken. How do you feel about that? The line that some are taking, whereas you're celebrating, without a doubt.
So we don't hold the pen, and we are really at the mercy of those who hold the pen. We try to tell our story as accurately as it is. The facts speak for themselves. We are quite transparent, and we have set up a process of engaging weekly, monthly, in details with the public, especially with the press, so that they can understand what is driving this turnaround. Of course, the issues that BD is raising are serious issues that we have raised ourselves, and fundamentally they are anchored on the non-payment by the municipalities. We've said it ourselves several times that the good that comes from the National Treasury intervention is going to be undone if municipalities don't pay us. You can't have a business like ours that runs and is owed 100 billion rands. We are a business that makes 16 billion rands profit. That 100 billion rand is our profit multiple times. So it needs to be sorted. And we are saying we're working with our shareholder and the respective stakeholders to try to stem this issue. And we are raising this flag now to South Africans that something has to give. And intervention is required much more earlier than before we can have any crisis developing from it. Yeah.
But at what point, Dan, will you draw the line on that? As you say, that municipal arrear debt has ballooned to almost 100 billion rand.
Let me tell you what drawing a line means. In any other business, you really start exercising your credit controls. In our case, it means you have to stop supply of electricity. If we stop supply of electricity ourselves, I'll give you an example now. We'll stop it to the city of Johannesburg, to the city of Tshwane, to the city of Ekurhuleni, to many municipalities. It's going to be non-functional. So our credit control options are not as available as many other businesses. What then will happen is that Eskom will be in a financial crisis and the National Treasury will have to bail it out again. We have agreed that this last bailout that we have should be the last. And therefore, we need to have all stakeholders come on board to assist us really alleviate the challenges coming out of the non-payment of municipalities. What have we done? We have designed the distribution agency agreement. It requires collaboration between ourselves, National Treasury, and COGTA, so that municipalities can actually work with us when we assist them to increase their revenue collection so that they can pay us. We are in the last days of negotiating this DAA, and hopefully in the next month we can make some announcements so we can start implementing it. But the time to act is now, yes.
Let's go back into that debt story, right? So, I mean, we know famously government gave that 254 billion rand injection. You're still carrying 372 billion rand in debt. This is above, I think, the benchmark that you'd set yourself was 250 billion rand being a sustainable sort of debt ceiling that you could manage. You have said you should not be needing further bailouts. Can you give us an ironclad, statement that you will not be needing further bailouts, given this performance now, and if it stays on a sustainable trajectory?
Iman, the debt relief program is not complete yet. We do receive money. It comes in essentially comes in through as a loan, and after meeting particular conditions, it gets converted into equity. So you'll see in our financials that our debt levels are still relatively high. When we do the conversions later on in this financial year and next year, then the last tranche, you'll see that debt coming down nicely towards 300 billion rands. We want to keep it around that point because operationally, we should be able to service our debt and also maintain our business from that perspective.
So again, part of this profit story, Dan, is about what you've talked about, the debt relief. What you've also done is reduce the use of your diesel. Part of that story is, though, the tariffs that are passed on to consumers. We carried a chat, I'm not sure if you were watching the program earlier, where we went to citizens to ask them about how they're experiencing the increased price of electricity, and they are not coping overall. I think if you do a look over the last 11 years or so since 2014, I think the tariffs have gone up cumulatively in the region of 190%. I know that Mthethwa was saying that what they want to do, you're on a mission to drive down those costs, and we'll talk about renewables in just a moment. But where South Africans sit right now, I mean, the story is quite miserable.
Iman, the part of the story behind the profit has got to do with the operational efficiencies that were in primary energy costs, 15% reduction year on year in operational efficiencies, in primary energy costs. That's some amount of 23 billion rands. It's made up of 16 billion rands from less diesel compared to the previous year. We are using less diesel because our generation coal fleet is maintained and operating much more better. The combination of our primary energy is also such that we have better margins because we're using coal to generate the power. The second component is that we had a once-off diesel rebate that has been in dispute with SARS for a number of years. That's now being resolved. But even when you strip that out, our profit levels is at about 11 billion rands. What we need to do as a country is really get to a point of agreeing on a new price path that solves the problem for the poor, that cushions the poor, that deals with stimulating economic growth from a manufacturing perspective, and that ensures the sustainability of the utility. The ministry is driving this process of reviewing the EPP, and then we can, as a country, agree on what is best for us. I just want to remind you that we are very sensitive to the fact that consumers are feeling the pain of high electricity prices. But I must tell you that these prices are still not cost reflective. And NESA will be the first to tell you that the price path that ought to be there for cost reflectivity is not yet there. But we need to find a happy medium that keeps all these three issues in equilibrium. Yeah.
And sooner rather than later, because you've got almost this double-edged sword where consumption might be down or demand might be down, but that's also because people can't afford to use electricity. So you need more people to use electricity so you can make more revenue. So you're in this insidious sort of cycle, so to speak. I want to go, though, to the addition, and there's another piece to the story which, again, might be, on a lighter note, and this is Kusile. That Unit 6 generator has now been added, and I think the contribution is around 800 megawatts of generation. That represents a huge milestone. So it's almost as if, we're at the end of all of the woes. Historically, a long journey, very expensive journey with Kusile, and some stability there. Does that add to the long-term sustainability story, Dan, of being able to provide competitive electricity rates with a stable grid?
Iman, the commercial operation status of Unit 6 of Kusile marks the end of the big build program. You'll recall that the big build from a coal fleet perspective is made up of Kusile and Medupi. So all 12 units are now in commercial operation. These units have got a very long life still ahead of them, 50 years to go, 60 years to go. They'll become the mainstay of our electricity security going forward. Even when renewable percentage of the mix increases, you still need base load. It is on the back of base load that the industries will grow, economic activities will grow. And so Kusile, with its latest technology of emissions reduction, will become a very pivotal part of our supply mix going forth, yes.
In closing, do you expect any, 13 days compared to triple digits days of load shedding or power outages in South Africa? I mean, that is remarkable, and you can feel it in especially for those who, you can feel it in the ease of living. You can just feel it environmentally around you. The big question is around sustainability. Are you expecting or anticipating, in terms of your risk assessments, any force majeure activities that could, send us back to the dark ages, so to speak?
A few weeks ago, I think it's just about 2 weeks ago, Iman, I was in your studio with your colleague explaining our summer plan. We've unveiled our summer plan. We've given an indication to the country that based on the work that we have done, we don't anticipate any load shedding throughout the summer. We have indicated that unlike before, where load shedding risk was high, above 13,000 megawatts of unplanned losses, the structural changes in our business from a maintenance perspective are such that it will only be above 15,000 of load losses that we may experience any discomfort. We are operating at 6,000, 9,000, below 10,000 megawatts of load losses, far away from where the risk starts kicking in. So we are seeing benefits of the maintenance that we have done, and we are comfortable that we should be able to, navigate the summer again like we have navigated the winter without any load shedding.
All right, Dan Marokane, thank you very much. Him and the team, figurative champagne chilling in the coolers there to celebrate the announcement of turning a profit after a drought of profits and in fact losses over the last many years or so. Eskom CEO Dan Marokane.